just one other client that we're expecting to join us. Andre will just chase and see if they are going to join. But in the meantime, welcome everyone. You guys have all been selected to participate in our new beta program for the conversations feature. You guys have been selected because we believe that your environment is such that using this feature during the beta testing phase will give us some good feedback, because you are already using functionality in PPO that lends itself to evaluating this feature. In terms of the plan, we are going to just do a quick recap. So let me just share my. You are all seeing my screen, is that right? You can see it? Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to talk to the conversations feature. So let me just start by saying that this is probably one of the biggest features that you are going to see this year. So yes, you've seen the beta program, or the launch of that new feature. A lot of you participated in the beta testing of that, and it was the filter list, and we mentioned a little bit about the future of widgets. But this feature is different in that it changes the way you use PPO from a collaboration point of view. So a lot of those other things that you started seeing, it just made PPO better. So it aided with, improved navigation, ease of use, certain features that you would just expect to find in a product will have been released during this last year, over the past couple months. But this one is going to make you rethink how you use some of the features that are already available in PPO. So as we go through the demo of the feature today, some of the things that you'll start needing to think about is how you use collaboration in PPO today, what it means for other platforms or tools that you might be using in your space. So things like Slack, if you use it, or Teams or WhatsApp or things like that. It's probably going to want you to start rethinking how you promote collaboration tools and centralizing those comms within your project tool, which is PPO. It's also going to make you rethink the use of email notifications, thinking about how you change that, maybe possibly even extending usage of PPO to other team members that may be employees in PPO but not active users. So it opens itself up to thinking about all those kinds of things. If you think about it today, if you are working on a project, you're probably sending emails on updates, you're probably communicating on Teams or whatever, probably even just message. But now it forces you to bring all those collaborations into PPO, and you've got good audit trail, history, and easy way to find everything related to a particular item on PPO. Some of the things that you'll also see when we do walk through the functionality is the widgets that we were talking about earlier this year, when we launched the filter widget. We mentioned that you're going to potentially see a feed widget, which comes with conversation. So we'll show you a bit about that. I'm also going to give you a sneak preview into a chart widget that's going to be deployed in the next couple weeks. So yes, we promised you quite a few things, and we mentioned to keep your eye out for new enhancements, and those things are now being realized. And I will encourage you to always think about ideas that you have for PPO to make it better. We mentioned we accelerating product development, and hopefully you guys can all see that. And I'll just remind you as well how you can go about logging an idea. So the minute you think of something, oh, wouldn't it be great if PPO could do this, or it would make my life so much easier if I had this available in PPO. As soon as you have those thoughts, please log those ideas. We are reviewing them constantly. We update them the minute they've been reviewed, prioritized. We update it on the portal so you can see if your ideas have been planned or completed. So remember to keep your eye out for that. Okay, so before we get started, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? The chat is available for you as well. Both Lindy and I will be keeping our eye out. A lot of our team is also on the call, so we'll all jump in and respond to whatever questions you might have. The session is being recorded. We'll share the recording with you guys. And as part of the presentation, you'll find links to additional resources of the things that we'll touch on. So if anything that we talk about, you're not sure how to do it in PPO, there'll be a link available on the resource slide that you can access, that you can also implement within your space. Happy? Okay, so our agenda is just welcome and introductions, the recap of the future of widgets, our chart widget sneak peek, which I'll show you, and then I'm going to hand over to Lindy, who I believe you all know and have engaged with for something in the past on the support desk. So Lindy is going to do our conversations demo for us, the resources that I mentioned that we'll touch on during the session, and then we'll just recap on the next steps post today's session, what you can expect, and then that's it. So talking about widgets, we mentioned this in June this year before the release of the filtered list, which you guys have all seen. So changed the way in which you used your list pages, and the widget that we're releasing today is the feed widget. So you can already see this, that will be coming. Once we have a couple widgets available for you guys that have been developed, you'll start seeing your home pages changing, where it will now be a lot more collaborative, a lot more flexible, customizable in terms of the widgets you have available on your homepage. We mentioned that there is going to be a significant change to how your homepage operates. It's going to be made up of multiple widgets. The feed widget is one of them. The donut chart widget, which I'll show you a little bit about just now. And then there'll be other widgets that you can look forward to. So the list widget, you've already got that. And feed widgets is today, we'll show you. And then donut charts in a couple weeks. Okay, so just jumping over to showing you a little bit about that chart widget that I mentioned you can expect to see. So the chart widgets is going to be a new widget that's going to be available on all list pages. So if I navigate to my projects page, you'll see projects menu. Through the settings icon here, your gear icon, which came with the introduction of the filtered list, you would be able to introduce a chart. In this case, it's a donut chart, and if I were to click on it, I could choose any of the fields, and maybe I want to see a count of projects by project manager. So there is exactly how I would set up that donut widget, and if I were to save this and do it there, I now have a donut that shows me a count by project manager. For a lot of you on this call, and I'm guessing that you meet with your success managers on a monthly basis, and it's likely that you would have already started seeing this from your success managers, giving you a sneak peek into what you can expect. But if you haven't seen it, this is what the donut chart will allow you to do. If I wanted to introduce another one, and maybe I wanted to do a count of projects by phase, I could quite easily do the same thing. What this does, it helps you to get these kinds of views on your list page, as opposed to navigating to a report to get the same kind of information, a portfolio view or portfolio dashboard. So again, less clicks, and you can see a visual representation of your data all on a single list. These donut charts will be available on all of your list pages, and whether it's a risk list, an issue list, doesn't matter. And you then have the option to set up these. It's a preference setting, so if you set these up, and if I navigated away from the page and went to issues as an example, went back to my project list, those same charts would still be there for me. So this is something that you can look forward to. There'll be some comms around this in the next couple weeks, so you can expect to see this. It might be coming with the introduction of a tree map as well, but we're still in the process of finalizing this. But this is another type of chart. So if I wanted to see projects by project manager and team, or portfolio or something like that. I could choose to introduce a tree map type chart, and the tree map is there. So you can see Peter Franklin, who's a project manager, has 2 projects in total, and they both sit in Transform and Grow. So here's an example of a tree map. This is an example of a donut chart. Am I right in saying that Victor is it a question or is it a comment there, Victor?
How's it, Victor?
That's a question actually. When I look at that donut by count by project manager, oh, you can show. Okay, I see.
So if you hover over, you can see that already.
Okay.
So yes, there is interactivity on the chart. So as an example, if I were to click on Mary Eckstein, it filters the list as well. So now I see specific to Mary Eckstein. If I took away the filter pull, then it will bring back the data. Let's say I didn't want to see Mary Eckstein's data in my chart. If I crossed her out, she disappears. So you do have that interactivity on the chart. Does that answer your question?
It does, and that's beautiful. I love it.
Okay. Okay, so whatever filters you've got applied here, it will that same filter will be applied on your chart. Okay, so that's something that you can expect. Don't hold us to it, but we are aiming for possibly the next 2 weeks or so. If everything goes according to plan, this will be available to all clients within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll share the appropriate comms with you. You might get a knowledge base article or possibly a short video, but you will get good enough comms for you to implement this within your own instance. I mentioned that we are encouraging you guys to please log ideas. If you are unsure of how to do it, just remember you've got your support icon here from your instance. It's the second option for log an idea. If you click on that option, it's going to take you directly to the community portal, and you can then quickly couple fields, complete and submit your idea. We keep an eye on those, and we will definitely respond to you for every idea that's logged. Okay, so think that's it. Some things that you should be looking out for in the demo that Lindy is going to do for us, and it's things that we've mentioned that were coming. Lindy will also cover them as she takes us through it. Smart timestamps. We mentioned these a while ago when we did our filtered list deployment. Smart timestamps are coming to PPO, and it's there through the feed widget, so you can expect to see that. Things that I need you guys to please think about is how you can improve collaboration within your space, specifically on some of your project-related entities like your RAID, your risks, actions, issues, decisions, whether there's still a place for formal action responses. So Lindy will touch on that when she demonstrates the feature. There's other things that you may want to consider as a result of conversations, like your email business rules. Those are typically real-time email rules that are sent based on an item being updated or added. You may want to, as part of this, consider whether you need those, whether you start disabling it, whether you start, changing your action responses, and the way in which general use of PPO when it comes to, maintaining the status of items. So I think that was it from me. Lindy, over to you. I'll stop share.
There we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming through. Got it.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, how's it, everyone? I'm going to take you guys through a brief demonstration of the functionality, not formal training or anything like that. So to start off with, and I'm mentioning this to you guys because you guys will need to activate conversations once we have done the deployment tomorrow. So something very important to note is that once we've deployed the conversations functionality to your instance, all of your users will notice this new feed icon here on the main menu. So it's just next to the search icon. So whether you've activated conversations on specific entities or not, the users will see this little feed button, just in case you get questions about it before you've activated your entities. Okay, so just a short and sweet on how to activate conversations on your PPO instance. So you just hover over admin, go to system config, and then under other settings, you'll notice entities that allow conversations. So on this instance of PPO, I've now just selected to switch it on approvals, issues, and risks as an example, even though my focus is going to be more around the risk entity today. Okay, so just before I submit here, let's just talk to some of the use cases that you guys could possibly use conversations for. So as an example, approvals that I've selected over here. So I think the Harmony team, if I'm not mistaken, you guys do gate approvals. So conversations can be switched on specifically for approvals. And a nice use case for that is, you know, it's sort of alleviating the need to, if a gate is submitted to the approver, you know, there might be a gap in governance or, you know, other documentation. So instead of you literally having to go and click, provide a note, submit, decline the record, sending that back to the project manager, you can just start a conversation on the side and just say, you know, just plug the project charter and I'll approve, something like that. So for approvals, there's a really, really nice use case for that. Looking at something like health indicators and comments, I think I'll use the PG team as an example for this. So when you look into status reporting, so I think it'll be very useful for you guys before, you know, reporting or doing your actual updates on your health indicator comments, you might need additional feedback from other stakeholders on the project. So you could start a conversation, you know, get some feedback from, you know, all the team members working on this project, and then based on the feedback they give you on a conversation, you can put that official comment on your health indicator or comment entity before you publish your status reporting. So I think that's a nice use case. The Mondi team, I know you guys are focusing on your resource allocations at this stage. So, you know, using it possibly, you know, for your engineering planning and allocating your engineers, I think that could also be useful and something that Taryn did mention to me. I think the most important thing to mention is using conversations basically takes away the need to edit a record, passing it on to the next person, them editing it, passing it to the next, getting more feedback. So it's like getting rid of many clicks along the way. So just making ease of use very easier as well. So you don't have to literally take an issue, assign it to somebody else, them update it again, assigning it to somebody else, creating 500, you know, emails, you know, in the process. So conversations could plug, you know, that portion of it. Okay, so let's jump into conversations itself. So let's say I've now activated conversation for those three entities. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use the risk entity just for the demonstration purposes. So if I just go to my risk, so yeah, I've got a risk availability of training facilities as an example. So I'm currently logged in here as Barry Lineker. So if I want to start a conversation, it's as easy as clicking new conversation. You'll see you have the ability to add a subject. It's not mandatory, but you can. And I find it very useful to use the subject, you know, if there's various topics that need discussion related to this one item. So I'm not going to add a subject for now. I'm just going to start a conversation. Okay, so before I click on submit on this conversation, let's talk to who's actually going to get notified in their feed based on the update that I'm going to make here. So I'm currently here on a risk view page. So my contact person is Stephen and my risk owner is Manny. So if I were to submit this item, even though I have not tagged any of these two guys, any of these two users, both of them will receive a feed notification that a conversation is happening on an item that is related to them. So if I just submit this conversation and their PPO kicked me out, give me a second. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second, Taryn. Sorry about that.
No, no worries, Lindy.
It happened earlier as well. I'm not sure why.
You've got multiple usernames there. Security.
Yep. Sorry, just give me a minute. Almost there. That's exactly what a person doesn't want to happen in a situation like this. But anyways, I'll be with you now. Just checking the other two.
So while we wait for Lindy, I think what Lindy's just demonstrating, if just as a recap for everyone, is that anyone related to an item will be notified via the feed. So it's probably different to what you used to. The feed is that icon that we started showing, the one that looks, it's similar to the icon you see on your Office 365 emails, it's on Teams. So it's a global icon that shows you when you have a notification pending. So the important thing to note is that anyone related to an item, so any employee related field on that item will then see that feed, regardless of whether you've tagged them or not. Catalina, you've got a question?
I do, thanks. And Lindy, you might be coming on to this, but is there any way of not notifying those people who are related to a particular, item?
Yes, we
Lovely.
use tagging for that. I'll demonstrate it now. Okay, let's hope I don't have any further login issues. So here you guys can see as Barry Lineker, I've now updated this risk record. I haven't tagged Stephen or Manny, but they will be notified. So if I just go to my next tab, in my next tab, I'm logged in as Manny. So let me just quickly do this. So here you can see a notification is showing on my feed. So without tagging them, they were related to the item and they sort of got the notification in PPO. So if I click on this, I think, let me just talk to all of the options that you do have here. So the top one you can see is sort of highlighted compared to the rest. So that just means that I have not read this notification yet. And by reading it, you literally have to click into it to view the item. The ones below here, you can see I've already read because they are not highlighted. Then just some of the basics, because your feed could get a bit extended or too long. If you've read everything that you wanted to read, you can either dismiss it, or if you want to go back to any of your conversations, you just close it and then they will still be on your list. So if I then just click into this record over here, it takes me to that risk record that was updated by Barry. So on this screen, I'm logged in as Manny Sanchez. So you could have a couple of conversations here. And again, if you click on a feed item that you haven't read yet and you draw through to it like I just did, the comments that you haven't read will be highlighted compared to the other comments on your screen. So as an example on this one, Carolina, the question you also had now, can we rope somebody else into this conversation? It might be that, Stephen and Manny are related to this item, but we might need some feedback from Joe Blogs, as an example. So I could reply as Manny over here, and I can just tag. So I just go at and start typing Joe's name, and it brings it up and you select it, and I just start typing my update. So I'll just go any suggestions or whatever the comment is. And when I submit this, the people that will get notified of this update would be the guys related to it, as well as Joe Blog. So if I just submit that, and I go to my next screen where I'm logged in as Joe, let me just quickly refresh here. You'll see the feed pops up on Joe, even though he's not related to the item. So yeah, you can see the update that Manny Sanchez just made, and I can literally click into this one and I can tag any of the users on PPO and they will get notified via that feed. Just a couple of other basics, and as I mentioned, this isn't a training course, it's just, you know, showing you guys a couple of the things that is possible with the new conversation and feed, is that if you've started a conversation, you have the ability to either edit it or you can delete your own conversations. So if you are the person that created the conversation, you have the ability to delete it. Other users can't delete conversations that you have started. I'm trying to think, what else am I missing? I think I've covered the feed as well. Something else, and this depends on what operating system you guys are using, but you do have the ability to use emojis using a shortcut on your PC. So I'm using a Windows machine, and the shortcut is, you know, holding in your Windows key and using the full stop as an example. Then you can also, you know, post any emoji in these feed items. So that's basically it. Yeah, and just to reiterate what Taryn mentioned earlier, I mean, when you guys decide to switch on conversations for the entities that you decide on, you have to consider, you know, as an example, do you really need all the fields on a specific entity when you introduce conversations? So as an example, on this risk view, it would tend to still make sense having an action response for risks as an example. But if you have something a little bit more ad hoc or informal, like an actions entity, you know, you might want to consider less input fields on the left-hand side. So maybe not having an action response, because I mean, the actions is, you know, just get this one done, you do that, the whole story. Maybe get rid of something like an action response field if the audit trail isn't important. And then you just keep the action going with your conversation on the side, and, you know, manage it by using your type and your status. So those are the things that you need to sort of take into consideration based on which entities you introduce the conversations to. The other thing that Taryn mentioned, and I think that's the last thing that I can think of now, is the smart timestamp. So here's a good example over here. So, I mean, when I initially added this conversation on behalf of Barry, you can see the smart timestamp now says 6 minutes ago. If you look at, you know, normal timestamps in PPO, you know, it's got the update date that says, you know, 22, 10, 19, 13 seconds, you know, all of that detail. But we are introducing these timestamps as well. And I think going forward, we'll see a lot more of that in PPO 2. Taryn, I think that is it from my side. I'm hoping that I didn't miss anything.
Possibly just cover the use of your avatars. I think everyone is seeing that when you've got your avatars, it's really helpful on something like conversations, because you can put a face to the name, especially if you've got a lot of John Smiths.
Yeah.
Within the space, and if your users haven't yet applied their avatars in their preference settings, it might be a good time for them to consider uploading the avatars. It does really make this a lot more useful.
No, definitely does. I agree, Taryn. Okay, so I'm sure all of you guys know, but just pass the message on to the rest of your users. So you just hover over your icon over there, click on preferences, and you literally just, you know, add a avatar image over here. So you can either, you know, drag and drop it or go find it on your PC somewhere, and that's literally how you add your avatar. So it's as easy as that.
We do see some hands up. I know Andre has raised a question and Catalina has as well. So we will get to you shortly. We'll take your questions now. One other thing to cover, Lindy, is the search.
Oh, okay, cool. I just don't have that much in my items, but let me just quickly have a look.
I think there is a conversation running
go.
on a issue or something already related to training, something you might find it, but it doesn't matter, you
I
choose.
think it's okay just to do it over here, no problem. Okay, so we've got the little search icon that specifically relates to the feed. So let's say this conversation had about 10 posts on and you're looking for something specific, you could just click on the search button and start typing in a word. So as an example, cost, it slims down my list and it just brings back the record where cost is related. So that's also a really nice feature on the feed.
Okay, so I think that was all of it. So we didn't forget about you, Catalina, and Andre will get to you now. So just remember a couple things that Lindy has covered is the minute we deploy it, the feed icon is available to all users. You might want to consider introducing or adding a notification or to communicate to your users that you guys are in the process of beta testing this feature. You could potentially use the resources we'll share with you today. There's a conversation knowledge base article that covers this feature in a lot more detail. So we did say that we're not, doing training, but the option is available for you guys. If you do want a walkthrough with more detail for your specific environment, we're more than happy to do that for the individual clients that feel they need it after having gone through the resources that we'll share. Yeah, so let's just see, Carolina. I think Andre was first. Andre, your question, if I just check it here in the chat, the use of this feature by users and non-users of PPO. So to answer your question, anyone that physically updates anything in PPO needs to be a user. Nothing stops you, however, from tagging a non-user. So you could tag a non-user, but they just won't see the feed because they wouldn't have a user account to access PPO to see the feed. So ideally, this feature, conversations together with the feed, works best with users of PPO. There's no way in which non-users can respond to a conversation or see a feed item if they don't have a user account. Answer your question? Happy. Catalina?
Hi, yeah, thanks. So my earlier question was actually not around including other people in the feed, but actually excluding the people who are linked to the person. So I guess my question is, sometimes our risk owner might be a senior people within the organization whom we don't want to, we don't want them to see the entire conversation around it, but we might want to just, present them with a solution. So my question is twofold, and I guess linked perhaps to Andre's question then is one, can we exclude a person from a conversation? B, if we cannot, in PPO exclude them, and if they're not a user of PPO, then will they anyhow see any of it? Will they get an email that they've been mentioned or anything like that?
So conversation. So let me try and answer this in a couple parts. First question was if you could exclude somebody that's related to an item. The answer to that is currently no, but if this is something that you think would be useful and would be something that you'd want to have available, take note of that and share it with us as part of the feedback that we're probably going to check in with you for over the beta testing period. So short answer, not currently. It's been set up that anyone related to the item will get notified and they'll see it if they are a user via their feed.
Mm-hmm.
Next part of your question was
if they're not a user, will they get any sort of
notification
through email?
No. So there'll be
okay.
The conversations feature doesn't come with any kind of email notifications. The hope is that this is a collaborative feature, and like you would have your emails open throughout the day or your Teams open throughout the day, if somebody starts a chat with you, you see it through the pop-up with an icon that you wouldn't get an email from Teams that you've got a chat. What we would potentially consider doing at some point in the future is maybe sending emails for missed notifications or missed feed items. So that's something that we're considering, that if, maybe at the end of every week, if you haven't clicked through to any of your feed items, you would potentially get a notification that shows you've got missed notifications, something like that. But it wouldn't be ever, I don't think, that each time you get a feed item, you send an email that is, I think that probably just replaces emails as they work today, which can be considered spammy from your users.
No, that's absolutely great. And with the notifications that I hear what you say that are potentially might be considered sort of, end of the week, for example, notifications, presumably they would still only go to the PPO users, because
Correct.
only those people would be able to log. Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Correct. Okay, any questions from anyone else?
Happy?
Karen Bueller here. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Beulah, go for it.
How do we provide you with feedback?
I'm going to get to that, I will, but what we'll be doing is we'll periodically be checking up on your instance to see that you've activated it on specific instances, and we'll reach out to you for feedback, but nothing stops you until we do that to log you a ticket via the desk. And there's various ways for you guys to do that. Starting a live chat doesn't matter. We don't mind how you do it. The options I'll quickly show you. If you will, is live chat, start a live chat, give us feedback, and you just say, beta testing, this is what we've picked up. Lindy will get those. If we see we hearing nothing from you guys after a couple weeks, we'll reach out to you and request feedback. But if you do pick up something, the minute you're using it, your options are live chat or the traditional logging a ticket, submitting a ticket, however, whatever your preference is, however you want to do it, we don't mind. You just give us the feedback as you pick it up. Anybody else?
Karen, maybe just one thing to mention additionally related to the feed. I mean, currently we introduced the feed to support the conversations, but looking at the future of PPO, the feed could be doing much more. So instead of you getting an email saying this project has been added or this risk has been updated, those are things that could also be incorporated in the feed, in the future. So it won't always just be tied to conversations, but bringing it into the other items in PPO that get updated, that could replace email notifications, and rather just pushing that to the feed as well.
Okay, so you guys are currently seeing this. While it's in beta testing, we're relying on you guys to give us feedback, good or bad. We really no holds barred. We want you to give us as much feedback as possible. And there are other things happening in the meantime. So there's still development underway. So the beta period we're hoping is going to run for about a month. I mean, from experience, we know that we need to give you guys time to activate it, use it for a couple weeks, give the feedback. So the hope is that we'll be ready to deploy this mid-November to all clients. So the full PPO's client base will get this mid-November. In the time that you beta testing, there are some other items that we're working on. So as an example, things that you could expect to see in a week or two would be the ability to add images. So let's say as an example, I just want to go here and reply. Being able to add an image is something that will potentially come while you have started your beta testing. Another one that you'll expect to see is standard reactions like you see on Teams as an example. So right now, if I want to get a reaction, I've got to click on my Windows key plus my full stop, and I've got the option for me to add these emoticons, but we are considering or working on having standard reactions that you could just click and you've got a standard, couple of standard reactions that you could use in your responses. I've got another hand up here. Let's see. Lindy, can you see who that is?
Trying to have a look.
It's just odd. Are you happy that you go for it? Question from R.
Yeah, sorry, the full name isn't showing.
Okay, we'll wait for you. While we wait, is anybody else with questions? Christian.
Hi, Taryn. Yeah, I just want to ask, when will this be? We at Mondi very excited to start using this, so thank you for this. I just want to ask, when will it become available now for us to start testing it?
Okay, so that then takes me to the next steps. So we mentioned a lot of the things that we've covered today in today's session. There's resources available for you to access. So as an example, your system configuration setting, if I drill through to this piece of content, it's going to take you directly to that knowledge base article, and it'll show you exactly where you'll be able to activate conversations. So that's an example of that one. And the same is true for conversations. So while we didn't cover all the detail of how conversations works, this piece of content for conversations does. So how to activate it, adding a conversation, tagging users. There's screenshots supporting everything that we've covered here, and it covers a lot more of the detail. So please consider going through that. So all the resources we've mentioned, avatars, email business rules, if you need to adjust any of those, it's all available here. In terms of the next steps, what you can expect to happen. So following to today's session, we'll share the recording with everyone that's on the call today, as well as the presentation, so you have it as a reference point. The deployment of conversations to your instance will happen tomorrow. So every client that we've selected and is on the call today will have this available on their instance during the course of the day tomorrow. It is then up to you guys to identify the entities for which you're going to activate it. Using the resource available to go and do that, you'll be able to select the entity and and then possibly communicate to your users using an in-app notification or something. But I think it might be valuable for you guys to do that if you don't want an influx of queries. I see this new pane on my issues. I don't know what this is about. What am I meant to do with this? So consider how you communicate this to users, because they will definitely notice it, whether or not they're participating in the beta test with you. It is, I think, for this to be the most valuable for you guys, is you can't do it on your own. So you've got to find either a project team that would be open to using it, or a select number of users. So, I mean, just as the PPO administrators using it, I mean, you don't get the full value of seeing how it works in an operational space. So you will have to consider identifying additional users to, help test or evaluate this feature. And then, of course, sharing your feedback, good or bad, by logging a support ticket, starting a live chat. But if we don't hear from you, Lindy will reach out and get some feedback from you guys on where you're at with evaluating the feature. But regardless, we will be deploying this to all clients mid-November. but we run these beta programs to get feedback on how this will be received by the rest of our client base. And if there's an opportunity for us to make additional improvements before the full deployment to all clients, these programs are the best way to do that. Does that answer your question, Christian?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Darren.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Any concerns? Any feedback? Questions?